Over the past year, I've been pursuing what I hoped would become a sustainable solo indie game development studio. And in the most recent few months, it has become obvious to me that I need to take a serious step back. In this video, I want to share with you exactly why I made this choice, what it's going to mean for the channel, and maybe help you come to a decision if you're not sure exactly what to do yourself. I've been interested in pursuing game development since I was a kid. Over the years, I got more serious about it, and eventually I developed a hope to bring my vision of a fantasy RPG with the writing quality of Fallout New Vegas to life. I learned programming to make games, got a degree in computer science, and ended up working as a software developer while making games in the evening. I learned marketing and learned how to do YouTube to help promote my games while earning a side income, sharing whatever game dev advice I picked up as I went. I desperately wanted to get to a point where I could make money just making games. The journey has been great and I've learned a lot, but it all changed when I ran into the realization a few months ago that sent me into a bit of existential dread for a few weeks, which was that I don't think indie game development is actually what I want to do. And it's taken me way too long to figure that out. Looking back, it's a bit hard for me to understand exactly what I was trying to do in game dev that I couldn't achieve through other means. I know I was fascinated by the idea of creating visuals on a screen that were ultimately rooted in electric signals. I grew to enjoy programming to model various systems I imagined. I liked robotics, I liked art. I guess the one medium that puts all these interests together is game dev. Over time, I also became fascinated with the business side and learned the advice of Chris Zukowski, Thomas Brush, David Whaley, and eventually I felt like I had a really good understanding of the Steam algorithm and the process of gathering wishlists. But game dev wasn't my only interest growing up. Since around 5th grade, I started becoming interested in tabletop role-playing games, and ever since I can remember, I wanted to write. When I got older, I thought about how I could make money writing, but I never dug deep enough to figure it out. I even self-published a book on Amazon about a disillusioned bounty hunter hired to slay a tyrannical dragon, where they put together a team and certain members have secret motives and everything goes wrong. It was so much fun to write, but unfortunately, knowing nothing about publishing, it didn't pan out, and I concluded that self-publishing was just an uphill battle, especially since there was no equivalent to Steam wishlists for books that you could track as you went, as far as I knew anyway. After 2 years of working on my Robin Hood game and doing YouTube, that was when I experienced that existential dread I mentioned. I realized that, for whatever reason, I felt very unconfident telling people what I was trying to do for a living. My games aren't that good, and my YouTube channel isn't terribly impressive either. This isn't to say that you shouldn't be proud of either if you're passionate about your work, but for whatever reason, it just didn't feel right to me. Maybe this is what some people call imposter syndrome, but I think it was a bit deeper than that. This internal lack of confidence made me realize that maybe game dev and YouTube was just not for me. But if not game dev and YouTube, then what? I never felt fulfilled at either of my software jobs. Programming was always a means to an end for me. The people I worked with were excited to research new technology and to make their code as good as possible for the long term. But in game dev, you aren't really trying to maintain code for years and years of agile development. You know how you're supposed to enjoy the journey and not just the destination? Well, at work, the destination no longer has any relevance, so I'm stuck with just the journey. I don't care about the products, I don't care about the process, and I wasn't making money for the sake of supporting a family, so what was the point? It seemed to me that programming wasn't for me either. So what else was there? Was I screwed? It certainly felt that way. After voicing these concerns to some friends, one got me in touch with an author named Brian Niemeyer. It turned out that Brian had a bunch of successful Kickstarters for his books, and after calling him to ask for some advice, he essentially taught me exactly how to self-publish my books through Kickstarter. I got very excited about this and ended up spending 5 or 6 weeks writing the rough draft for my first novel. This is it, by the way. Writing was just so much more enjoyable to me. I finally was genuinely enjoying the process itself, not just the destination. So here's the plan. This thing is gonna launch sometime in the spring, but in the meantime, Brian convinced me to go back to that book I wrote all those years ago and give it the launch it never got. So I went through the entire thing, and having learned a lot about writing over the past few years, I did a pretty massive edit. I tightened the character arc and improved the world building, and Brian also agreed to do a full professional edit, which has just made the story so much better. It has a beautiful new cover, and it's finally ready for its own proper relaunch campaign for an 8-year anniversary edition. So I'd like to invite you to go follow the Kickstarter page if you want to support this new direction and get your hands on what I believe has become a truly gripping story. It'll absolutely mean the world to me. So now that I've covered where my heart is at, let me get into the more specific issues that I've experienced with game dev and YouTube. Regarding game dev, well, as you know, if you watch my channel, I have never launched a financially viable game. I launched one Steam game and several small itch.io games, but none of them made any reasonable amount of money. I firmly believe that the optimal game dev strategy is to make small games that take at least 3 months to build, so one failure doesn't put 3 years of work to waste, and you don't lose motivation, you can take more risks, and so on. And I also firmly reject the idea that those kinds of games are just silly or just snacks or whatever. I think you can build a compelling story in a roguelike or even a city builder. I believe that ideally you should tell a story through gameplay, but considering how much of the work in making a game is taken up by polishing and making menus and making sure things work with a controller and so many little things that no one actually wants to do, and just how much work you need to put in to see progress, I think everything I want out of game dev will be much more achievable in other media like writing. It's a lot easier to master a collection of skills that all have to do with putting words together on a page rather than having to master programming, art, game design, balancing, polishing, game feel, and so on. I love making RPGs. I love planning the factions that exist in the world and world building, and more recently I've become more interested in level design, or more specifically dungeon design for tabletop games. But if I make a video game RPG, it has to be so incredibly small that you lose the open world quality, Steam players don't care about it, I don't care to build it. The optimal choice is to make it all randomly generated, but then it loses the character of the meaningful theme and narrative that I want to convey. So it would just be easier to write RPG modules instead, where I can just do the design and leave it there. There is no implementation that you have to do because, well, there's no code. You just write the thing. Keeping things at the level of pen and paper, or I guess a Google Doc, means you essentially have infinite freedom. I think to succeed as a game developer, you have to fall in love with the idea of being a toy maker, and I think you need to have the humility to truly appreciate that identity. If you watch the recent Thomas Brush podcast with Chris Sikowski, this is the sort of thing Chris is arguing in favor of, and he makes a really good case for why it's good to make those kinds of games. For myself, I can certainly have fun messing around in Unity and trying out an idea for a while, and I think I will still do that, but I just don't think being a toy maker is why I got into game dev. I think my reasons for making games are a lot more easily fulfilled and a lot more one-to-one with writing novels and expressing myself narratively. If you have it in you to create the Stanley Parable or the Outer Wilds, I think that is the sweet spot, but I think those kinds of games are outliers, and I certainly don't think I have it in me to create the next genre definer, especially since I find myself so drawn to writing specifically. As for YouTube, I don't necessarily want to put an end to this channel, but there are a few problems. First of all, the level of enjoyment with respect to what I get in return. Low edited advice videos are worth making if I can get a sponsorship or sell my workshop, but what I really like making are videos that either have some story to them or some sort of creative flourish here and there. These are obviously a lot harder to make, but the problem is I'm not so passionate about making these videos that I would do it for no money. I might rather make a short film or something with full creativity rather than having the restraint of framing the story around giving game dev advice. As for the sponsorships, there's another problem there because the majority of offers I get are either to send me a product I don't need or some AI software that doesn't do anything better than GPT or Claude. When you get sponsorship deals, a lot of the time companies want dedicated videos, which means the entire video is about their product. And the reason why you don't see this too much is because bigger channels can get away with just the integrated ads. Dedicated videos usually give a bit more money, but people don't really watch them. But if that's what the brand wants, okay, that's their problem, but as it stands, it means I have to spend time making a video I don't care about as much as I may appreciate the product, and most of my audience won't care about it, and it also won't grow the channel. Most of the offers I get are very low too. If I make 4 videos a week and YouTube is my only income, I have to make a few hundred or really $1,000 per video, which is impossible. Most offers are well under $100 per video, so it's just not worth it. The other problem is a bit more fundamental and probably something that you can agree with if you watch my videos, which is the fact that I don't have much credibility because I haven't launched a successful game. I am much more of a YouTuber than a game developer at this point, and personally I don't see that as an issue because I feel that I have a lot of good information and advice to share as someone who's made a lot of mistakes as a developer, but at the same time, I understand that people would much rather hear from someone who has had success making games. And as much as I enjoy giving people tips to learn from my mistakes, I think it's like work. I only enjoy it insofar as I'm making some money for it. I'd rather make advice videos than, say, work at McDonald's or in an office job, but I wouldn't do it for fun. So I guess I see my current work on YouTube primarily as work and as a tool, and I think people would probably appreciate it more if I saw it primarily as a passion. If I can continue to make use of YouTube, I will, and I'm still debating whether or not I'll actually launch my Robin Hood game, but at the same time, there are other videos on topics very unrelated to game dev that I would like to make. I'd like to focus more on writing or movie analysis and tabletop role-playing. If you want to stick around for that, that would be awesome, but if not, I'm not ruling out continuing to post game dev advice. We'll see. Whether or not I ever come back to this, my journey through game development and YouTube has been an awesome learning experience. I had the chance to meet and learn from some amazing mentors, and I want to give them a shout out and thank them, starting with Chris Zukowski, who really opened up my eyes to what it takes to treat game development like a business, and ever since our very first call, he stressed the importance of loving what you do. Also, if you watch this, thank you, Chris, for your encouragement, for your mentorship, and also for being the ghost of game dev past that one time. That was great. Of course, I have to give a huge shout out to the one and only Thomas Brush. I've learned from Thomas directly, helping him with videos and with the dog game demo, and he's been very encouraging. Thomas's focus on polish and quality in everything he does really helped me to understand the need to make everything I work on, no matter whether it's a game or a book, as high quality as I can possibly make it. Oh, also thanks for playing Jacob Marley in that Game Dev Christmas Carol video, Thomas. I appreciate that. Last but not least, I once again want to thank Brian Niemeyer for helping me get started with publishing books. His edit of the Dragon Slayers is awesome, and his guidance throughout the Kickstarter has been super helpful. And also, I want to thank you, dear viewer. Thank you for your comments, your insights, your likes, your encouragement, and for tuning in and for listening to my rambling this far. If my videos have ever helped you in any way, or even just gave you some motivation, I'd love it if you checked out the Kickstarter for my book and followed the preview page. I'm thrilled that you've joined me on my game dev journey, and I hope you stay with me as I start to focus on other interests. See you soon, best of luck with your game dev journey, and as always, thanks for watching, and God bless.